Philippians 3:4, though I might also have confidence in the flesh. If any other man thinketh that he hath whereof he might trust in the flesh, I more. So just yesterday I was responding to Trent Horn and he said that it doesn't really matter whether we can lose our salvation. Because, so he said, even people who believe they cannot lose their salvation will still do good works, because if they didn't do good works, that would prove they weren't saved. Now obviously that's not true. If you're serious about faith alone, you have to recognize that faith alone means you can live like the devil and you will definitely go to heaven, because it's not about how you live, it's not about your works, it's about your faith. But I still agree with Trent Horton, it doesn't really matter whether we're saved by faith alone, whether we're eternally secure in terms of how we live, because Baptists, evangelical Baptists, will still tend not to sin very much. And it is important to recognize a lot of the time the strictest people when it comes to sin, the absolute Puritans when it comes to cutting out any aspect of sin from their life, are the people who believe that the amount of sin they do has no bearing on their salvation whatsoever. This isn't because they think they'll get a reward, but rather because they believe in the true gospel, the Spirit is moving in them, and because they recognize how loving God is, that he will still love us even if we sin a huge amount, they in turn love him more because they recognize how loving he is. And that's why I think this verse from Paul is really great, because what he's saying here is, look, if you are going to trust in your flesh, if you are going to trust in your works, guess what? I still win. Paul's saying that by the standards of the work salvationists, he is actually more holy than them. And the point he's making is that it's not as if the reason he's pro-faith alone is because he doesn't have anything else to boast of. No, he does have other stuff to boast of, more to boast of than most of the people who are advocating for work salvation, but he just doesn't believe that's how he's saved. And I do think there are many Christians today who espouse free grace, who espouse the true gospel, which is salvation by faith alone, who are living incredibly moral lives. Now, I wouldn't say that of myself. I would venture to say that I am probably more serious about reading the Bible, more serious about constantly renewing my spirit by reading God's word than a lot of the work salvationists out there, certainly than a lot of the Catholics who are allergic to reading the Bible. But I still have plenty of sins I struggle with, so I'm not going to be here to say, oh, I have more reason to boast about my works than you do. And in general, I would say that Christians probably shouldn't say that. But it is something that does warrant stressing occasionally. I mean, this goes right back to Abraham, right? He was willing to sacrifice his son, but that is not what God demanded of him. There's this constant theme of the message being, you should be willing to do anything for God, but that's not always what God is demanding of you. And in the case of salvation, all God demands of you is that you believe in him. But those who believe that you have to do some works should know it's not as if we're against doing works. And that's why it's so powerful when Paul, who has all of his critics beat when it comes to works, takes some time to make this point.